Hello, welcome to one more session of a KieLive. Good
Yeah.
morning, good afternoon, good night, whatever you are. Welcome.
Welcome everyone to one more session. And today is going to be really nice because we are bringing something that is already released on Cogito and also on PAM, like Red Hat PAM, which is a jBPM, and we can use both together and we show how we can use both together and with a super relevant topic, right, Alex?
Yeah, and this is nice because we are coming after the DMN talk and we continue that, but now using more tools and show how using the developer tools, a tool set that we have enabled to build an end-to-end example using just VS Code, and we'll deploy that to KIE Server. That is going to be great.
Yeah, for you who are used to working with with jBPM, you're probably used to working with Business Central, and now the VS Code's extensions are more and more are better and better. So for today, what you will see is a developer experience when trying VS Code. So for that, we have a guy he's been through different roles in his life, so he knows what it is to be in a customer, to be inside the actual project with hands-on, and he also knows how it is to code the product itself. So it's going to be a great perspective on the matter, right, Alex?
Yes, absolutely. Someone that were in the field implementing for the customers the PAN or BPM and Drools and all the things. And in the recent years, I think it has been a while, already transitioned to engineer. So he has a very broad understanding of the technology, not just in the engineer perspective that we deliver our components, but how it is in action in customers out together.
And he's going to do it from scratch. So let me bring him. Adriel. Hello, Adriel. How are you doing?
Hello everyone, how are you?
Estoy bien, gracias.
Buenos días para todos, buenas tardes.
Aí, Adriel, are you really going to do everything from scratch today?
For sure, we are going to show our technology, how to start with an already created project or with a new project creating from Business Central, and then we are going to bring that project and we are going to implement everything on that project using VS Code. And finally, at the end of the session, we are going to deploy it on KIE Server to show how can we integrate all the technologies we have in just one point.
What about the use case? How does it because you said COVID, and so what about that?
Yeah, some time ago, we saw many software implemented that they needed to change their structure while they were while COVID definition changed across the last year. So many challenges appeared, and for that, I thought it was a good idea to implement something related to COVID to show how can we easily change or modify an existing process or case case definition while the times goes ahead. So the main goal is to show how can we implement easily and change stuff from scratch using and be right behind the last changes of those protocols that changes every day.
That's a very good use case because we've been through this pandemic for about a year now, and we saw how the guidance from the health departments has changed over time. And what we see now, you show us how you can model this graphically, and you can adjust as the time goes by, and you can keep up with the health department's guidance.
Sure. So that's the way we are going to start. We are going to start simple, and then we are going to make it bigger and bigger, so we can at the end have a final scenario, a complete final scenario implemented in using VS Code.
Woohoo! Okay, I'm looking forward to it. So, shall we start?
Sure. Let's go.
So, you who is watching us right now, feel free to drop any questions in the chat, and we'll make sure to bring it to Adriel. Okay? Adriel, I am sharing your screen right now. Feel free to get started. Okay?
Great. So, what are we going to see today? This is the real Argentina suspect case protocol. This made they changed across the time because new stuff were discovered regarding to the virus. So this is one instance we have. I think it's from November/December. But it will be enough for us to understand what are we going to implement. And we are going to create the project and import it into VSCode. We are going to use Business Central in this case to create the project, so we can see how an already existing platform can, a project that was created in an already existing platform can be integrated and used in VSCode. And we are going to implement that protocol. You will see, I translated the protocol to English so we can understand the protocol. We are going to check a few stuff about it because there are some things that I expanded, because one thing is how medics or researchers talk about the protocol or the virus, and another thing is how we understand that. And finally, we are going to deploy it on KIE Server. So we will not just implement it, but we will execute the different. We will execute using KIE Server, and we will get different responses depending on the inputs. If you want to get this code for sure, and if you don't want to implement it with me, you can go to my GitHub. This is the project URL, and you will get two things. One is the KIE implementation to run this on KIE Server, and the other one is something implemented in for Cogito runtime. So you have both worlds in there. So the first things we need to understand is what means a suspect case. So there are two main cases. You will see those cases that depends on the people, depends on the symptoms, depends on many stuff. But there are basically two main cases to implement here. And the first case says that anyone of any age with two or more of the following symptoms. So they need to have two or more of those symptoms I described there. They need to have fever, 37.5 degrees or more, or cough, or odynophagia, or shortness of breath, anosmia, dysgeusia, headache, diarrhea, or vomit. So those words are real right now. But for instance, odynophagia is just if you have a throat, like a pain in your throat. Or anosmia and dysgeusia is the lack of taste or the lack of smell. So those words are hard to understand at the very beginning, but that's one of the first things a knowledge engineer should do, is understand what are you talking about, because maybe those concepts are for researchers are easy, for us are not, and we need to translate that in something that we can understand. And apart from that, all these criteria includes all severe acute respiratory diseases without any other etiology that fully explains the clinical presentation. That means any kind of severe acute respiratory, no matter what. Yeah, okay. And the second case is, let's say, is the first case, as it says in the last bullet, with some other things added, like if you are a health worker and you have just one or more of the last bullet symptoms, you could be a suspect case. The same if you lives or works in a close or long-term internment institution. That means that if you are in an orphanage, you work in an elderly home, or those kind of institution, you could be a suspect case. If you are essential staff like medics, like army, like security forces, you could be a suspect case. Or if you live in slums neighborhood, that could be another reason. Or of course, if you were in contact with a COVID case in the last 14 days. So these are the main two cases that makes you or makes the health system to suspect you could have COVID, and you should be in quarantine for 14 days at least. So telling that, the first thing we are going to do is I will show you the working example. So you will see how this response works. For that, I created, if you see, I'm going to use the whole time the Visual Studio. So what I've created for this is I didn't want to do a test scenario because that's for developers. And in this case, I want to show you this working as if it were a third-party application or my own application consuming the services from the KIE server. Okay, so in this case, I think I didn't deploy the project, but give me one second. I will deploy this so we can see it. So the first thing we are going to do is do a quick compilation.
I can give you 1 second, but I will ask you to increase your font size 2 times.
Okay.
Like, chuk, chuk, and then we are good to go.
Let me see here. Okay.
Good, thank you.
And you see, okay, great. So the first thing we are going to do is just do a simple compilation and deployment on the KIE server. So give me just 1 second. We will do it right now so we can start querying the REST API. Then we will go step by step. So once this is deployed, we can just start querying. So I will decrease this a little bit. And if you see here, what I'm doing is I'm calling this. This is the name of the project, of course. So what I'm doing is I'm just querying the COVID project that is already deployed on KIE server. So what I'm doing here is I'm inserting objects. In this case, the temperature that is more than 37.5. Actually, I'm putting it twice. We could say that it has a cough instead of just a temperature. So this way, we are inserting objects into the knowledge base. So we can fire this and see what's the return. So we send a request, and we are getting a response from the server. So okay, this way, you can see that.
Right. This could be considered like if I had a front-end application with a custom UI, this would be the request that it would be making to the decision server, right? To get out the response from the rules execution.
Exactly. We are querying the KIE server as if we were an external application, a handmade and my own application. And this is the query I should do from my application, and this is what I'm going to get. Okay.
Okay.
So the main thing is that we can see here in this response is that how many rules were activated, and if in this case we are going to see how this is implemented, but how many results affirmative we have. I mean, if you put here, for instance, that the code is false, and we execute this again, we are not going to see in any place, for instance, in this part of the results that we have 2 results affirmative. Okay, if you see here, we have 2 rules only activated. So when we are going to see the rules, this is we need 1 more rule to be activated to have this happen. So it's kind of cryptic, this kind of stuff. It's hard to understand at the beginning, but once you get and understand what each things mean, it gets easier. I promise. And this particular case, the first case, is made with Drools, and the second case is made with DMN. So the other example I have is for DMN, the same as we used to have for Drools. DMN, from my point of view, is quite simple to write the REST API, and probably it's quite easier to understand at the end. So what we see here is that we are calling this DMN. This DMN I have in my container, in my KIE container, and we are sending into the DMN context these symptoms. that are the temperature of, in this case, 32. We can put 38, and if it has odinophagia or not. Okay, or where that person lives, or if it is a close contact, what's its profession, and where's their workplace. So the same, we execute this request and we get the response from DMN. DMN gives us a little more context about what is happening in there, so we can see what's the input, okay, and the functions we have, or the decisions we made, and if on each decision know how it result. We can see here, for instance, is the question if it is essential stuff, the result is false, or if is the second case in this case, that is the result of the whole decision, it is true. So we can say that actually this person is a suspect case. If it is a health professional, if he lives or works, these are different kind of decision we are making inside the DMN. So now we see the examples. Let's start to make this happen. Okay. So the first thing we are going to do, is we are going to go to our Business Central to present or to show how something in Business Central can be used and developed using VSCode. So we are going to create just a very, very simple project. We are going to call this example COVID-19. Okay. So we have our example project here. And the first thing we are going to do is we are going to clone this, because we are not going to do it here, but in VSCode. So let's clone this using the same tool, git clone, and this project. And now we have it here. So we have right now the example COVID project, the example COVID-19. One thing I've added to the example, to the KIE COVID project is this plugin. Where's the POM? It's a plugin to deploy directly to KIE Server. That this is what are we going to use. So we are going to copy this into this POM file here. So now we have the possibility to directly deploy from Maven command this project to the KIE Server. And the second thing I'm going to do is I will configure the KIE module. Why? Because I need to make this stateless, and so I'm going to create a default session just for my project. So in the example, again, I'm going to go to the resources that is inside this folder, and I'm going to replace this. What I'm doing here, I'm just creating a KIE base and a case session, a stated case session for this package. Okay, so we can start with this. So this is something we don't want, because this is a name that is not. That it does not represent what we are doing right now. So we can just delete this, and it doesn't delete everything. Okay, right, now we are. So we are going to create our first package, or KIE COVID. So we have our Java entities here, and our resources on our DRLs and DMNs file in here. So again, we are going to create this same package. Here, I did this the wrong way. Sorry for that. Or KIE COVID. Okay, now we are ready to go. So what we need to understand now is what are the rules we are going to implement. So the first thing we are going to do is reading the rules again. So let me go to the rules here, and let's go into implement the first case. What we are going to do is we are going to see the rules are quite quite similar. There are a few things to pay attention, but we are going to do. I want to be more in the DMN case than in the DRL case. So probably the DRL, we are going to see how I implemented that, because it's the less, this first case, as it is the simplest case, I prefer to do it on Drools to show a few stuff. But then what I'm more interested in to implement the DMN case myself. So the first, what we are going to do with the first case is we are going to see what I've implemented for the first case DRL. So this is a very simple group of rules that receive symptoms. We store symptoms in our knowledge base, and then we let the engine to process them to see if those rules are applied. So for that, what we are doing here is we are checking the symptoms. If the symptoms that we are inserting into the base, if I have symptoms into the base that belongs to these names, like temperature, like cough, like odynophagia. So if we see we have this symptom that is actually a very simple object. It's a, let's call it a key value object that contains a name and a value for that. So we can insert this way symptoms. Okay, so I'm inserting this symptom that has a temperature and a value of 38, and I'm inserting this symptom that is a cough with the name cough and with a false value in this case, because usually these kind of applications are for self-service, because we are not going to be in the role of a medic, because actually the medics could be will answer faster than putting all the inputs in this kind of software. But if you are like in Android application with a self where you can your self control if you could have or not, or if you are or not a suspect case, this could be very interesting to use. So going back to the first case, DRL, what we can see here is that we have one rule for each symptom that we want to control. So we have this temperature with this temperature symptom. If the value is higher than 37.5, we consider this a possible criterion to have on our list of criteria. Okay, so I'm creating this object called criterion that is actually the only thing I'm doing this is just to have in my knowledge base a group of criteria stored to know after this how many criteria were applied for this. So if I have this fever and a cough, we are going to have two criteria that were applied. So we are going to be a suspect case, okay? Because that is the definition. If you see the definition here, we will see that we will need two or more of the following symptoms, okay? So you will see that the rules are quite the same, because in this case, we just can put one rule. Each symptom has one single rule. So if we need to, for instance, if tomorrow the health researchers say that there is a new kind of symptom that could be a suspect case, we can just simply copy this rule, paste it down, and write the new kind of symptoms. Like I don't know, I can figure out one right now, but whatever we can put here, we will have a new rule, and this will insert a new criteria in case these rules applies. So adding things is quite simple, and we only need just to modify this file and upload and upload this again. We don't need to modify any kind of value of our application. So this is quite interesting for this kind of agile way of modifying these applications. Instead of writing pure Java code to add a new symptom, we just add this to our DRL file, we redeploy this, and that's it. Then there are more interesting things, like if you see, there is a rule that is called short of breath or respiratory distress, that are actually basically the same. You have problem when you are breathing. Okay, so for this case, I had a few medics give me some help with this, because I wanted to understand what a respiratory distress means, because it's not the same to say that that I can't breathe, because that could be for many kind of reasons. Actually, I can be nervous, and I probably I couldn't be able to breathe. Okay, that things could happen. So I asked a few medics what means a respiratory distress. So what I find is that there are many different kinds of symptoms that could say that you have a respiratory distress. So one of those is, for instance, desaturation. Basically, you need to, if you are okay, you need to saturate more than 94. But if not, you are in this respiratory distress. The good thing about this is that these three are just one single rule. Any of them should activate once and only once. Why? Because if you are saturating less than 94, you have a respiratory distress. Or if your frequency of breath is greater than 24 breaths per minute, you have a respiratory distress. But you can have one or the other, or both, or all of them. So this is an OR rule. You can have any of them, and this will count as a single, just a single symptom. So that's interesting. That's an interesting way to solve these kind of problems. The same happens with the anosmia and dysgeusia, because they are basically the same. If you see the protocol says that in just a single bullet that you can have anosmia or dysgeusia. So it's basically the same. You can have one or the other and will be just one symptom. It won't count as two. And then we go back again to the simple rules, like headache, or this one that is quite like the others. You can have one or the other, or both, and it will count as just one symptom. Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, sure.
But you showed us what I've been talking in some sessions in the past is rule engine is not replacing ifs and else's, because then you are grouping things, you are creating independent rules, so they can live or grouped or independent in a single file that we can adjust as the protocol changes. So it is, at least to me, it's a realization that we've been talking a little bit more abstract with samples that were more not close to our daily lives. Now this is very close to home, I think, for everyone. And it's possible to see that it's go beyond if and else and all these things. Besides all the things that we learned from audio, all the optimization, but is the clarity, I think, in the rules that we can read, as that's a technical rule, right? DRL is a technical rule.
Yeah.
But it's very clear for developer or someone that has a technical background to read these things.
But still, I think we can have even more clarity if we go for DMN, right?
Right. DMN will be, for me, DMN is a game changer. I've been implementing this a long time ago, almost like 6 or 7 years ago, and this was the only tool we used to have. And DMN is a game changer for sure. DMN changes the way we see the rules, the way we implement the rules, the way we communicate the rules. So I wanted to start with this because this is quite simple. You can see what you meant to say, but in the DMN rule, you cannot just read. You can see the whole picture. You can differentiate very clearly what are the inputs, what are the rules, what are the functions, what's everything, and and how they combine to be the final result. So I wanted to start with this because this is the most primitive thing we have.
And also the most flexible, right?
And also, of course, the most flexible. There are things that you cannot resolve in DMN, or they are harder to resolve in DMN than this. But there are two different. I mean, people who will use them in different cases. But DMN is for sure for the 95% of the cases of the company who implement. I think it's a game changer. It's for sure
And by
something
the
we were
way,
waiting long time ago.
See that now.
yeah,
Now
we have people
this-
on the chat like, let me see the
Yeah.
DMN.
Okay, let's go to the DMN. So let's finish this. This is just how we count the suspect cases, the criterions, and how we get the information back. So now we see this. Let's do the following thing. We are going to copy these things. Actually, we don't need them. We don't need them because we are going to implement everything in DMN. So the first thing we are going to do is we are going to create the DMN file. So in this case, we are going to call this second case.dmn.
Adriel, and before that, this is only happening because we have an extension installed, right? So if you could just
yes.
show the extension for the folks here in the chat.
The extension, let me install Cogito. So I'm using the Cogito bundle. This is installed. You just go find it here in the extensions tab. You look for Cogito, you install it, and that's it. That's everything you need. You don't need to install anything. You have this working on your VSCode instance. And well, you will see the documentation, what you can do, what you can't, and also you can modify BPMN or sysyn files. So this is quite interesting, and for the everyday developer who is using here, and not just the everyday developer, someone who has the VSCode that first feels comfortable with the VSCode, you can just install it, and even you can just see one single DMN without needing to execute or having the whole project. So this is an interesting way of doing stuff. So let's go back to the second case. So the second case starts. We are going to start with the things we need to implement in this case. So if we see the second case, the first thing I identify here is that are a few words like to be a health worker, like where do you live, or if you work in these kind of places, if you are essential staff, where do you live, in case you need to check if you live in this kind of neighborhoods, or if you are a close contact of a COVID case, or one of the following symptoms. So what I can identify right now is a few objects, a few elements. We have a few inputs. Like one is the symptoms. Each symptoms you have, you will need to send it to the DMN, to the KIE Server application that is deployed. Or if you were a close contact, that's something you will need to know, because that's going to be a Boolean value, because only the person could know if it was a close contact or not. If it lives in a slum neighborhood, that could be based on an external service, for instance, like where I can give the address of that person, and then I can consume an external service to see if that address belongs to a slum neighborhood, for instance. If you are essential staff, this is actually what's the profession, like this one. I mean, a health worker or an essential staff is basically where they work. What's the profession? If they are in the army, if they are medics, if they are nurses, if they are security forces. So we will need the profession of the people we will need to know the profession of that person that is coming to ask for the second case. And the same for this. This is we will need to know where's the workplace of that person. If they works, for instance, in an orphanage or in an elderly house, we will need to know that for sure to implement that. So the first thing we are going to do is we are going to implement the inputs we need. But before that, there is one thing that is quite interesting, that are the symptoms. The symptoms, we are going to do this the same way we did it with the DRL. We are going to create a custom data type, because we for symptoms we did a name and a value of that, and we are going to create a symptom. This is the first thing we are going to create. And the symptom actually is a structure. It's not, a symptom is not a name. A name itself is a name and a value, so we will need a structure to make this. So we create a symptom, and then we create the fields that it contains. For instance, name, that is from string type, and and the value name, that is in this case any, because it could be anything. Okay, so we receive symptoms. But at this point, I only model one symptom. So we will need to model a new data type. That is actually the list of symptoms. That is of symptom type. And actually, it is a list. Okay, so we have, right now, we have we have the two things we need: a list of symptoms and the symptom itself. So now we can go to the editor and start dragging and creating the inputs, the DMN inputs data we need. So the first thing we are going to add is the symptoms. Okay, so this is the first thing we have, and this will be related to the symptoms we have, and this is what we are going to include in our DMN decision to check if that person has one or more of those symptoms. Remember that by the end of this DMN model, we will need to be sure if the second case is true. I mean, we are going to get everything, every decision we are making, we are going to put the results of the decision into the second case to check if that second case actually applies to all those input values we are adding right here. Let me go here again. So we save in case we lost everything. So the first decision we are going to check is if those symptoms, if the user has one or more of those symptoms. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to put all those symptoms inside a decision, and we are going to call this decision has symptoms. Okay, let me just give me 1 second that I do. So has symptoms basically will get this list of symptoms, and we'll use an external function that will let us know if a single symptom, if we have that if we actually have that symptom. So since this is a list, we need to go through that list symptom by symptom to check if that symptom actually is what we are looking for. So in this case, what we are going to use is an external function. Sorry. But the first thing we are going to do is we are going to implement this symptom. So in this case, we are going to be a literal expression. Let me do something here. Just give me 1 second. Something I forgot here. Okay. Sorry for the delay. Let me see. So the first. So again, so what we are going to do here, right here in these symptoms, is we are going to understand if we had those symptoms, and the first, what we are going to create here is a literal expression using fill. Okay. So for that, what we are going to say is, we are not going to use this literal expression. We're going to use a context. So for this, we are going to create a literal expression that will be 4 symptoms that are the things we are going to receive for symptom in symptoms. That is the list we are going to receive for each symptom in symptoms. We are going to return if he has symptom. Okay, I didn't implement this function yet because when we started first with what we need, and then we are going to write how we can resolve that. So in this case, we are going to check this, and if he have any kind of these things, we are going to store this in a variable called has symptoms. This value, this variable is going to be a list of symptoms. So what we have here actually, or the result we are going to get from this variable is if any of those has symptoms. This is in here. So what we did here, we are we are doing a filter here. Basically, we are filtering this list of symptoms to check if any of those symptoms in this list actually is a valid symptom. So we are going to filter this list, store everything from this list in this variable, and then we are going to check if there is anything, if there is any symptom in this list. If we actually have a symptom in this list, this is going to be true. So what we also need is the list of symptoms to receive, and that's it. This is the return type. So this is what we are going to return. Okay. So this is basically our first decision. Then what we will need to do is to commit this has symptom. Sorry, today I'm not better for writing. We will need to create this. This is basically a function that we can include and that can make different stuff for us. So we are going to go back to our main DMN structure, and we are going to create this new function or this new knowledge model, and we will call this has symptom, because we are now a single symptom, not the whole list of symptoms, and we are going to connect to our decision model. So right now, what we are going to write is a bigger function, a much bigger function, because we have this new has symptoms function that should check everything and will say if that person has one or more symptoms. So for that, I split this in 3 main contexts. And let's start from the beginning. The first thing is the return type. This is going to be a Boolean for us. The parameters for this is going to be the symptom, because we are going to receive a single symptom. Okay, and then we are going to start with our context is. So let's clear this, because we are not going to use an expression, and we are going to use a context for this. So in this case, we have our first context, or our first row. Instead of doing an expression, we are going to use a decision table. So if you can hear, we are nesting things. We are nesting decision tables into context, into functions. So this is quite interesting about DMN, and how we clearly can see all the decisions we are making in a single place. So the first input we are going to have here is actually, since we are going to check if those symptoms are or not what we need, is the symptom. But not just the symptom, but the symptom name. Because we need to check if the symptom name belongs to, if we can match the symptom with the name, so we can create the proper exit for that. Something I did here is you will see that probably many of those things could be solved in a different way, because since I wanted to show many things about DMN, this some of those stuff could be forced maybe, but it will show many different kind of DMN elements, different elements we can use for completing our job. So the first thing, or our first symptom in this case, is the loss of taste. Okay, instead of using Odino, Anosia, or Discosia, we are going to use simple words. So in this case, loss of taste. And if the symptom, or if the symptom value, that is any, is true, that means that we need to create in the right. Sorry, because I didn't put here. I put Boolean, but this actually is. I put any, but actually this is a Boolean value. So sorry for this. I put it in the wrong place. If you see what I have here, actually is the response, and these are the inputs, and this is the result value. So this is not symptom.value. This is the name of the function. In this case, as you can see, it is repeated in this section. But if we put here what this means loss of taste or smell. Okay, so these two places are related. So this is the result of this context that is going to be stored in here. So if the symptom value is true, the result of this is true. Then we will need to add another rule that is not just for loss of taste, but for loss of smell, because actually, if I have one or the other, it's exactly the same. It's not more than one symptom, it's just one symptom, as we said before. And this is, again, we are going to put this in true, and the exit again in true. In any other case, the response is false. And the next thing we need to modify is the hit policy, because these probably are not going to be unique. We can have both. So the first thing we get is the first we are going to return. So for this one, for this context, we are finished. So let's add a new entry below to add a new set of rules. In this case, what we are going to see is if we have other symptoms. Yes, these other symptoms actually returns again a Boolean, because this is what we are returning from this context, from these context entries. And we are going again to add a new decision table, because this one we are going to implement it like this. And again, there are a bunch of other symptoms we can check, like odinophagia. This is another symptom we can check, because we are doing the same here. We are checking symptoms. So we are going to repeat this as in the previous context. This is a string. Again, we will need to add another column, because this is the value. Symptom. This is the value, and this is again any, and this is the result, that is a Boolean. So we are okay in here. And like in the previous one, we are going to check if it has or not odinophagia, and if it has that, it's true. We are going to implement below if it has a cough, and again, if it has a cough, we are going to return true. And the last thing is that we are going to check what's the temperature of the patient, and in this case, we need to check if the temperature is more than 37.5 degrees. If that's the case, we are going to return true. I know probably there are, for sure, there are better ways to do this than a table, but I wanted to show this with this kind of tool. And again, the last part of the table is going to be false because none of them has applied. And again, like in the previous entry, we are going to use first because the first symptom we get is more than enough just to be considered to have symptoms. Then we have the last entry that is what we did in the previous one as in the DRL rules as respiratory distress. And what's again the return type is Boolean. And so what's respiratory distress? It's the same we did in the previous DRL example. So we are going to put this on first because this actually is has the same strategy than the other contexts. And we are going to add the second column. So the first column is going to be symptom name, that is of type string, symptom value, that the type is any, and we have the return type here. So now we can finish the last part, that is we need to check if the saturation is less than 94. In that case, it has a respiratory distress. Sorry. We add another row, and in this case, we check the frequency. If the frequency is more than 24 breaths per minute, is a bad thing. So we are going to add true again for this one, and then we are going to add. Sorry, I think I'm too low. My mouse goes crazy. Let me save this and I lost the. Okay, let me try to. I don't know if I can copy this one, but let me go to the other example so we can see the full picture of this. We can see here that I cannot go further, but we can see here that if you complete the table with saturation frequency, you can actually use combined numbers and Boolean values. Okay, and this is what you get again if you are not in these first three values. The last one is a false. So what is interesting here is that in the last line you can see that we can combine those three context entries we have in one single field expression that will check if the respiratory disease or distress, if I have a respiratory distress, or if I have other symptoms, or if I have a loss of taste smell, is enough to be sure that only one symptom, if I have one or more symptoms. So this is a big table. Probably this could be reduced a lot, but I try to combine this in different kind of different kind of tables to have these to show this kind of context inside tables with field expressions all together. So give me 1 second. Okay, let's go back. Oops, sorry. Then what I actually also had are these close contact, and this the close contact, that is basically, if you see the close contact is just a Boolean value that we are going to use in the second case. We have the address actually that you see that is pointing to the second case, but this is actually based on this that it will use this function, this slime neighborhood, that it could be an external function, to check if this address is actually an external if this address is al slam or not. In this case, I've implemented this here in this same DMN because I didn't want to call an external service, but for sure you can. Then what the other parameters we have is the profession and the workplace. Why the profession? Because we need to know if that person, if that person it is a health professional, or if it does essential stuff. And the workplace, to know if that person works in these kind of institutions. So if you see the health professional thing, is a quite simple table that only shows, only asks if that person is, the profession of that person is medicine or nursing. In that case, it returns true. Again, the first it fits is the first, it will return that value. And if none of this is true, it will return false. Something quite similar goes with the essential stuff, where we check if that profession is our security forces or army. If you see here, we have two different rules or two different decisions for the same kind of, for the same input, that is profession, just because it's easier to split the concept into different stuff. Okay. And something quite similar goes with this workplace, because we can see if that person works in penitentiary, or if it works in an elderly residence or in an orphanage. So these are the main rules we need to work with. The most complex rule is this has symptom. Actually, is the main rule, because the symptoms are the most complex part of or the most complex decisions are made with the symptoms. What I love about DMN is that we can see, actually, we can visually see what everything means. And with that, I meant that we can see exactly what are the inputs. We can see that these elements are the inputs that we are going to need. And we don't need to read the code or read Java files to understand what we need. We just need to see the main model, and we are going to see in a glance what we need. And the other thing is that these boxes we have here, those are the decisions we are going to make, and this one, of course, those are the decisions we are making to go through the DMN to finish the second case. And the other thing that are important are those. Look at this. We could extract these symptoms in an external function. So if there is anything, if there's any other decision that needs to check if those symptoms are part of this, we can just use this external function. The same with the SLAM neighborhood. In this case, this is just a pure simple function that checks if the name of the address starts with SLAM. Because in Argentina, there are many places that are many addresses that start with that name, so they identify that just starting there, because actually there are no streets, so they have this the name Slam or Barrio, that is actually for how they are called here, and you can put everything, all the outputs, all the inputs, everything you got, or I mean all the inputs from the user perspective, all the output from decision perspective, you can put everything into a single decision node. And in this case, this is a kind of table that I made. But the most interesting thing here is that we are including this function in this row of this table. So we are sending the address that, if you see here, we get this as an input from the user perspective, and we send it to the directly to a second K decision node. So we can send this address to this function, this external function we are using inside this table, and check the return value. So this function composes inside this table what we are going to need to decide if this person or if this person has or not, or is or not a suspect case. The main difference of this table is this that this is any policy. So any of those who are true, we are I mean, if we hit any of these rows, the final result is going to be true. Why? Because we are repeating symptoms. You need to have symptoms and one of those to be true. Of course, this could be solved using this has symptoms or in a field expression, and then ask for any of those to be true. But I decided to solve it like this to see the power of tables we can have in DMN. And if you see this, and if you go to the test cases, we can just test anything we want. We can put any symptom we want. We can change anything here, and we can see what are the resulting values. For instance, if I don't have fever because I'm a healthy person, and I don't have this, in this case, we are going to count by hand to be sure. For instance, this is not, I live in, for instance, I don't know, 9 of June. That is an avenue here. I wasn't close contact of COVID case. And let's say that I'm a medic, and I work at a hospital. In this case, is for us the same. But if we see the results and we execute this, we are going to see all the inputs here. And we are going to see the
question, just to make it clear. You use that key plugin in Maven to make it deploy, right? So
right.
You deploy it in the beginning, so just you could cover this and try this test. But it's basically a Maven command that you were using here, and to do the deployment in KIE Server.
Right. If you see here, this is so. Alex, don't let me lie to you. You can see here that we have the deployment unit already deploying the KIE Server inside Business Central. So we are mixing both worlds. We are mixing the Business Central as maybe as an admin platform right now with this, where we can deploy things. We can push this project to Business Central, compile it from there, and deploy it from there if we want, or we can just deploy it from this plugin I have right now. So this is a different approach, but basically the same result. For probably this is not going to happen in a production environment. You are not going to deploy like I'm doing right now. Probably you are going to Jenkins, or you are going to use Business Central to do the deployment. But the good thing is that this is working. This is not working in like a fat jar or something like that. This is getting the K jar and pushing it to KIE Server, so we can have it like there.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Welcome. And going back to the example, we can see all the inputs we have right here in this DMN context. What are the values, or what are the inputs you are using? If you see, there are things that I didn't write, right? Like, well, I think I wrote almost everything, but we can see that we also get what are the results of each decision we took. For instance, since this person is a medic, the profession is medicine, we can see that the box that the decision that lets us know if that person, if a health professional, it is true. So if you see health professional, we can go to our DMN, and we can see right here that this is the box that is returning this value. And this is a summary of what has happened inside the DMN. And then we can see box by box what was the result, what's the decision ID, what was the status of that. If it could happen that the box is not okay, and you can have an error in the box, so you can see the status of that box or the decision that that box made. So we can see everything, every decision we made, or every decision the DMN made will be representing in the output. So from this, you can just take this variable to see if the second case was okay, or if that person has or is or not a suspect case, or you can get just the whole information to present that to different kind of users. Now, if we say that this person has a temperature of 38 degrees, and we execute this again, we will see that the second case is true. So this way we can confirm this is actually working, and we are going through all the rules we write inside the decision model. So this is basically this real case scenario implemented in DMN and run in KIE Server.
Wow, that's great. It is, and I love it. This example, it's quite complex. I think it is a lot to unpack in a presentation. But I think you show a lot of value to us, especially when you build the BKM that has this function there. That you could extract the calls, like the how you structure the table with the three sections, and it's so easy to visualize what we are looking exactly this one, because again, it's a lot of conditions, but here you have a visual representation that's clear.
Yeah, actually, this was I think this was one of the most fun things to this whole DMN, because the symptoms are always the worst part, because that's what a knowledge engineer in this kind of case will need to understand more, because symptoms are not easy, are not our common language. It's easier to know if a person is a medic or not, but it's not easy to understand what a respiratory disease or distress means. And those kind of stuff make me think on doing this way, to show the context, to show the power of context, and how we can get or reduce the amount of rules in or reduce the complexity in smaller tables, and then just ask if the person has a respiratory disease or other symptoms or loss of taste and smell, and just that. Just keep it simple and keep it readable.
In this case, you were doing tests with HTTP requests, but could you have used a different tooling to do that, like test scenarios, that is also on VS Code?
Right, yes, the test scenario is included in VS Code. I could use that. I didn't include this in this kind of way, because I was more meant to have this being implemented for as if we were an external application. But for sure, you can just put this. You can write the syssim file inside the resources, and you will be able to use the test scenario for DMN.
Yeah, and just important to highlight, the test scenario is executed as a JUnit. So the same cycle that you have the JUnit execution. So we're talking about VS Code, so we are all developers here now. So you just right-click and execute, and you have the same feedback that you have in JUnit tests. That is pretty good.
Yeah, it's an interesting tool to have the complete life cycle. And I think that VS Code is giving us a lot of interesting stuff to do in such a small place.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's just because we had a question earlier about one of the plugins that you're using actually for to do the requests with HTTP.
Oh, yeah.
People are curious about it.
Yeah, I love that plugin. I think it's called HTTP client. HTTP client or REST client? REST client, this one. This is quite interesting.
You know. Now you go. Now we know.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, because you just write the URL with the verb you are going to use, the types, and just put the JSON stuff, and it's my replacement for Postman.
Good, thank you, Adriel.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Welcome.
I want to say that one interesting aspect in this setup especially they use the scenario to do this, is the key umbrella. All the projects play well in the Java or development ecosystem, and some of these functionalities we didn't even have to do ourselves. It's just part of the ecosystem. The JUnit runner is a good example. We didn't develop anything specifically to JUnit, display the test scenarios there, but it's because we play well in the ecosystem, in this case Java ecosystem. It's just part of the toolset.
Right, we have everything packed in one place. This is like for developers is quite is actually it's quite nice from my point of view, because I have just one single platform. I can run my test. I can see my Java file. I can do the editors or the diagrams I need just in one single place without and using the tools that I'm more used to. So for developers it's great, but not just for developers, because having this having the possibility to get one DMN file and open it in VSCode is just great. It's portable. You can open it everywhere. You can use it everywhere. So this is for, I think it's for the whole time I've been doing BPMs or DMNs. I think we are in a great moment.
And I want to bring the last question here, unless someone posts a new thing, is about the validation and the syntax of the model. And I already replied this in the chat, but I'm bringing this because Adriel just released one feature that will allow us to have exactly this feedback integrating VSCode to see the message or the validation of the model directly in the problems panel in the VSCode. So,
right. Yeah, sure. We have released features that actually we are going to include every validation and every problem in this tab. So now, if we are going to actually, it's not releases in this version I have right now. But if you move something or if you delete a line, a connection, and you save or you ask for validation, you will see those problems in the problems tab. So during while the time goes, we are going to get more and more integrated with VSCode. You are going to feel that we have always been there, and I think that the next year, the next few months, they are going to be great for not just for us, but for the community and for the users of our platform.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So, Adriel, I'd like to thank you a lot for your session. Guys, I will make sure that the links for the presentation and for the GitHub repo will be on the subscription, on this video subscription, right? Yeah.
Comment.
Right. And I don't know if you want to show my last just for the people, if they are there and if they want to get the repo address, that's where the COVID project is. You have actually, if you see you have the DMN is exactly the same for KIE and for Gojito stuff. So that's something interesting. You can do. You can share those words, and you will have the KIE version, the KIE Server version. You will have the Gojito runtime version, and for sure, anything you need to ask, or if you want to contact me and you want to have some beers and talk about something like that, about this, just let me know, and I'm here for you.
After COVID, right?
Yeah, for sure. A virtual, let's say a virtual beer.
Oh yeah,
I heard it was pretty good.
If you like the session and you think it's helpful, make sure that you drop your like, subscribe to their channel, because we're here every Tuesday bringing content for you. And next Tuesday, we will be talking about how we can actually use these DMN or BPMN files embedded in your custom application. So we have more content coming on the next session, and we hope to meet you here again.
Thank you.
Adriel, thank you a lot. I wish you a great week, and I hope we can see you again soon here in the KieLives.
Yeah, of course. I would love to. Thank you, and see you. Bye.
Bye.
Porcelli, your final words for our community?
Oh, I will just reemphasize, ring the bell, subscribe. That's a way to get involved and we also get involved. Talk about getting involved. We have the call for papers that we invite a whole community to submit ideas to present in this key session. This is a community place, so everyone is invited.
Perfect. So thank you all. It's great seeing you here. See you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Bye.